Internal Revenue Code, Section 861. Income from sources within the United States. A. Gross income from sources within United States. The following items of gross income shall be treated as income from sources within the United States. Interest. Interest from the United States or the District of Columbia, and interest on bonds, notes, or other interest-bearing obligations of non-corporate residents or domestic corporations, not including A. Interest. I. On deposits with a foreign branch of a domestic corporation or a domestic partnership, if such branch is engaged in the commercial banking business. And I. On amounts satisfying the requirements of subparagraph B of Section 871I3, which are paid by a foreign branch of a domestic corporation or a domestic partnership. And B. In the case of a foreign partnership, which is predominantly engaged in the active conduct of a trade or business outside the United States. Any interest not paid by a trade or business engaged in by the partnership in the United States and not allocable to income which is effectively connected or treated as effectively connected with the conduct of a trade or business in the United States. Dividends. The amount received as dividends, A. from a domestic corporation or B. from a foreign corporation, unless less than 25% of the gross income from all sources of such foreign corporation for the 3-year period ending with the close of its taxable year preceding the declaration of such dividends, or for such part of such period as the corporation has been in existence, was effectively connected or treated as effectively connected other than income described in Section 884 D2. with the conduct of a trade or business within the United States, but only in an amount which bears the same ratio to such dividends as the gross income of the corporation for such period, which was effectively connected or treated as effectively connected other than income described in Section 84 D2, with the conduct of a trade or business within the United States, bears to its gross income from all sources. But dividends, other than dividends for which a deduction is allowable under Section 245B, from a foreign corporation shall, for purposes of Subpart A of Part 3, relating to foreign tax credit, be treated as income from sources without the United States to the extent and only to the extent exceeding the amount which is 150th of the amount of the deduction allowable under Section 245 in respect of such dividends, or C, from a foreign corporation to the extent that such amount is required by Section 243E, relating to certain dividends from foreign corporations, to be treated as dividends from a domestic corporation which is subject to taxation under this chapter, and to such extent subparagraph B shall not apply to such amount, or D, from a disc or former disc as defined in Section 992A, except to the extent attributable as determined under regulations prescribed by the Secretary to qualified export receipts described in Section 993A(1), other than interest and gains described in Section 995B(1). In the case of any dividend from a 20% owned corporation, as defined in Section 243(3)(c)(2), subparagraph B, shall be applied by substituting 165th for 100 for 50th. 3. Personal services. Compensation for labor or personal services performed in the United States, except that compensation for labor or services performed in the United States shall not be deemed to be income from sources within the United States if A. The labor or services are performed by a non-resident alien individual temporarily present in the United States for a period or periods not exceeding a total of 90 days during the taxable year. B. Such compensation does not exceed $3,000 in the aggregate, and the compensation is for labor or services performed as an employee of or under a contract with I. A non-resident alien, foreign partnership, or foreign corporation not engaged in trade or business within the United States, or E. An individual who is a citizen or resident of the United States, a domestic partnership, or a domestic corporation, if such labor or services are performed for an office or place of business maintained in a foreign country or in a possession of the United States by such individual, partnership, or corporation. In addition, compensation for labor or services performed in the United States shall not be deemed to be income from sources within the United States if the labor or services are performed by a non-resident alien individual in connection with the individual's temporary presence in the United States, as a regular member of the crew of a foreign vessel engaged in transportation between the United States and a foreign country or a possession of the United States. For rentals and royalties, rentals or royalties from property located in the United States or from any interest in such property, including rentals or royalties for the use of or for the privilege of using in the United States, patents, copyrights, secret processes and formulas, goodwill, trademarks, trade brands, franchises, and other like property. 5. Disposition of United States real property interest, gains, profits, and income from the disposition of a United States real property interest, as defined in Section 897C. 6. Sale or exchange of inventory property, gains, profits, and income derived from the purchase of inventory property within the meaning of Section 865I(1), without the United States, other than within a possession of the United States, and its sale or exchange within the United States. 7. Amounts received as underwriting income, as defined in Section 832B(3), derived from the issuing or reinsuring of any insurance or annuity contract. A. In connection with property in, liability arising out of an activity in, or in connection with the lives or health of residents of the United States. Or B. In connection with risks not described in subparagraph A, as a result of any arrangement whereby another corporation receives a substantially equal amount of premiums or other consideration in respect to issuing or reinsuring any insurance or annuity contract in connection with property in, liability arising out of activity in, or in connection with the lives or health of residents of the United States. 8. Social Security benefits. Any Social Security benefit as defined in Section 86D guarantees amounts received, directly or indirectly, from A. A non-corporate resident or domestic corporation for the provision of a guarantee of any indebtedness of such resident or corporation, or B. Any foreign person for the provision of a guarantee of any indebtedness of such person, if such amount is connected with income which is effectively connected, or treated as effectively connected, with the conduct of a trade or business in the United States. B. Taxable income from sources within United States. From the items of gross income specified in subsection A as being income from sources within the United States, there shall be deducted the expenses, losses, and other deductions properly apportioned or allocated thereto, and a rateable part of any expenses, losses, or other deductions which cannot definitely be allocated to some item or class of gross income. The remainder, if any, shall be included in full as taxable income from sources within the United States. In the case of an individual who does not itemize deductions, an amount equal to the standard deduction shall be considered a deduction which cannot definitely be allocated to some item or class of gross income. C. Special rule for application of subsection B. For purposes of subsection A to B, if the foreign corporation has no gross income from any source for the 3-year period, or part thereof specified, the requirements of such subsection shall be applied with respect to the taxable year of such corporation in which the payment of the dividend is made. D. Income from certain railroad rolling stock treated as income from sources within the United States. One general rule. For purposes of subsection A and Section 862A, if A. A taxpayer leases railroad rolling stock, which is Section 1245 property, as defined in Section 1245A(3), to a domestic common carrier by railroad or a corporation which is controlled, directly or indirectly, by one or more such common carriers. And B. The use under such lease is expected to be used within the United States. All amounts includable in gross income by the taxpayer with respect to such railroad rolling stock, including gain from sale or other disposition of such railroad rolling stock, shall be treated as income from sources within the United States. The requirements of subparagraph B of the preceding sentence shall be treated as satisfied if the only expected use outside the United States is use by a person, whether or not a United States person, in Canada or Mexico on a temporary basis, which is not expected to exceed a total of 90 days in any taxable year. 2. Paragraph, 1. Not to apply where lessor is a member of controlled group, which includes a railroad. Paragraph 1 shall not apply to a lease between two members of the same controlled group of corporations, as defined in Section 1563. If any member of such group is a domestic common carrier by railroad or a switching or terminal company, all of whose stock is owned by one or more domestic common carriers by railroad. 3. Denial of foreign tax credit. No credit shall be allowed under Section 901 for any payments to foreign countries with respect to any amount received by the taxpayer with respect to railroad rolling stock, which is subject to paragraph 1. Cross-reference. For treatment of interest paid by the branch of a foreign corporation, see Section 884F.